Well, hello everyone. Welcome. So happy to have you here for this edition, the August edition of the Deep Dive Workshop in the Podcast Your Story community. I am the host of the Women's Podcaster Party and the Podcast Your Story community, Julie Marty-Pearson, and I am super excited to welcome our guest speaker teacher today, the other Julie, Julie DeLucca-Collins.
Yay, thank you for having me. I am speaking about something that is incredibly fun for me and that I really, really love to talk about in my community. And thank you for having me. Honestly, this is like so fun. I love your community, Julie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I always love it when I have other podcasters come in and be a part of it and appreciate the community I'm creating here because I wouldn't still be going to podcasting if I hadn't found the right communities. So that's what I am hoping to pass on to others. And so, a little background, Julie and I actually met via Podfest.
Mhm.
This year in January, we were both speaking during what they called the Picha Kucha Talks. And if you've never heard of that before, you're not alone. I think Podfest is
Wow.
the only conference I've ever seen this at. But basically, you have 5 minutes. You have to have 20 slides. They're each shown for so many seconds, and there's no stopping, pausing, going back. It's like literally automated. So you have to
Mhm.
practice to be on. And that's what her and I both did. How did you feel that went for you, Julie?
You know what? It reminded me a lot of TEDx where you have to like memorize your script and
Yep.
I knew that for me, I needed to keep the timing, but I I ended up creating the slides to prompt me
Mm.
to keep me in time. How about you?
Because we had to submit the slides a couple weeks ahead of time,
Mhm.
I changed what I was saying a little bit, and I don't think I stuck exactly to it, but I really liked having the structure because I
Mhm.
think what we find is we can just talk and talk and talk and maybe aren't making the right points. So it was an interesting experience, but I love how you tie it to TEDx because I never thought about that. It was
Yeah.
weird, and some people unfortunately did not do it well, didn't even do the slides correctly, and it was kind of a
Mhm.
mess. But it was really interesting to be a part of that because every 5 minutes was totally different because there were so many different people speaking. So that's
Yeah. And
how
I love
her.
that too though, because it's different
Yes.
topics too.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
like 3 hours, we heard 20 different topics. It was really interesting. So, anyway, that's how we met and became connected. And so, I'll let Julie tell you a little bit about herself and then we'll jump
Yeah.
right into the workshop.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for having me. And ladies, thank you so much. And I hope you bear with me in case my power goes off and or you see my dog because he's in my lap. He refuses to be anywhere else. But what I'm talking about today, as far as the 90-day planning and everything, is something that for me has definitely been the cornerstone of my business success. Now, to give you a background, I've been podcasting for 5 years. My show is Casa de Confidence. We are in the top 2%. Not that that means a lot, but it's great. We've been podcasting, and really what I love about the show and what I love about what I do is that the show has allowed me to build a community to also help me build my business. I left a corporate career in 2020. I was laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and I already thought and I knew that I wanted to go out on my own, but I didn't really know what that was going to look like. And when I first got laid off, I knew that I wanted to do corporate um, executive training, right? Or executive coaching, mainly because as I climbed up the corporate ladder, many women would say, "Oh my God, you're so confident, you got it together." And I really wanted to bring the message that what you see on the outside doesn't mean that I don't feel like a hot mess on the inside, but I just kept going. And my habits and routines and frameworks are really what helped me in my corporate career. Now, what ended up happening that I didn't really anticipate is that, yes, in the very beginning, and I still do to some degree, I do work with women in the corporate arena, but what I do more now is business strategy. I was the chief innovation officer and oversaw operations and business development for the company that I worked in. and we expanded nationally, and we were a multi-million-dollar company. So in order to be able to run both departments successfully, I had to have some frameworks. Now, those are some of the same frameworks that I use for my business. And of course, with the podcast, a lot of the work that I do also now is helping women, supporting them to build that visibility and ultimately get clients and get money in their bank account through the work that they do in their business, through the visibility of the podcast, et cetera, but also using frameworks. And one of the things that I find with a lot of clients when they come to me is that they're very good at what they do. They're very passionate about what they do, but somehow when the day finishes, they, go make dinner or leave their office and think, I didn't get anything done. So how many of you kind of have felt like that from time to time, right? And then
Many
you're
days.
thinking, yes, and then you're thinking, not only did I not get anything done, but holy camazel, like I wanted to do that thing, or that thing is the thing where I want it to be, and I'm not there yet. So today we're going to talk about the success roadmap, and we're going to talk about how, especially now in the summer, this is a great time for you to put together a 12-week plan or 90-day plan to really stay focused, consistent, because consistent action is the thing that gets you traction. And one other thing that you should know about me is um, I am a certified Tiny Habits coach from the Tiny Habits Academy with Dr. BJ Fogg. Dr. Fogg is the person that conducted all of the research on habits, on motivation that is used in the book Atomic Habits. And of course,
Mm.
he is a Stanford University professor. So some of his research is really some of the stuff that made a big difference for me. Why?
And
Because I know that habits were important, but I knew that I was missing a piece. And once I began to see what he talked about and incorporate it into my life and business, things started to turn around. I have some slides. I don't normally love slides because I love to just make it intimate, fun, and very actionable for each of you. So I may go back and forth between the slides
yep.
and conversation. So let me bring you first to what the problem and what I see the problem is for many of us when it comes to planning and the overwhelm that we may feel. The first thing is that we typically do feel overwhelmed, and it's something that it's natural. How many of you beat yourself up when you're in like emergency mode, overwhelmed, doing all the things, and you just feel like, I can't believe that this is happening to me again. I'm so disorganized, right?
Yep.
Give me a thumbs up or hands up if you identify with
When
this.
our negative talk gets worse.
Yeah. That I call it the frenemy, right?
Mm.
Because it's our enemy talk that we're telling not so nice things to ourselves, but at the same time, it's also like a friend that's always been with us, and it's hard to kind of get rid of it permanently. So the thing to really understand is that as you're going through the overwhelm, right? Because maybe we have all these great things that we want to do and ideas, there's no shortage of ideas. We're going to say, oh, I wanted to do that. I'm not there, but I'm doing this. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know how to do that. So we create inconsistency in how we're showing up and where we're showing up. So the reason a 90-day plan and a 12-week plan works is because you're really putting some blinders on, right? And this is what you're doing. I want to share an example. If we were to be creating a dinner party, and I love to have people for dinner, and I don't have people often enough, and mainly because I'm a perfectionist and I want to have the perfect dessert, the most curated, beautiful meal, and then also have the signature drink for the evening and have my house be perfectly perfect and a tablescape that looks right out of Pinterest, right? And the reality is that if I want to be a good cook, that means that I may not be doing some of the other things, right? And
Mm.
this is, again, a lot of what happens in our business as podcasters, as coaches, as consultants, as thought leaders. We have multiple different things, and we have to know which of these things are going to move the needle for us a little bit more. The
Mm.
other thing that we want to go ahead and talk about is that at the end of the day, you can create a plan that, and this is why the 90-day plan works, that as you're executing it, you can decide somewhere along the 90 days that, hey, this is not working. I need to change this, right? And you're not married to that. And sometimes it's okay not to get distracted, but to definitely pivot from where we are. And the last piece that makes a 90-day plan successful, and one of the things that I want to talk to us about is the power of community. And right here in Julie's community, you find that you're going to get support, accountability, the resources, the brain power of other people. And that's also the thing that helps you and creates success for you. So, the first thing that I find and that many of us end up getting stuck in is that we don't know, right, where to start.
Mm.
In the morning, we get to our desks and or we have a plan for the day and halfway through or at the end of the day we realize not where I want to be. So I'm going to pause here and I know Gina you're in the car, but Valeria and Valeska, tell me a little bit about the work that you do.
Alaska, go first.
Okay. I was like, you. All right. The work that I do partners with my podcast. I have two, and it partners with both businesses I have. So
Mhm.
my background is project management, and I parlayed that into executive assisting because that
Okay.
was the job that was available for me about 5 years ago when my life upended in my divorce. And so I use my executive assisting skills and I offer fractional executive assisting to people that can't hire a full headcount or just need somebody to help them a few hours a day, but not as a virtual assistant, as more of a partner person they can actually think on their behalf. And then I use those skills to help women that are going through divorce so that they can reduce their overwhelm, spend less money on attorneys, accountants,
Mhm.
and other professionals, and then therefore focus on what they need to. And in the way that I do that is by helping them pull together all of their financial and other paperwork that they need for the process of divorce. Not so much filing the paperwork, but all of the things that help their attorney and their accountant and their real estate agent and everything become more effective and help them get the best equitable and fair divorce.
I love that. And I think that, you're probably not unique in the sense that you're wearing multiple hats. And I think that that is one of the great gifts that we have, but it's also one of the challenges that we have. And you're not only managing the business and priorities for other businesses, but you also are deciding, right, the direction and the things that are important to grow yours. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And
Welcome.
I'm sorry, I need to yell at a dog that is going through the garbage. Give me a minute. Excuse me. Boo.
I love the real life.
No. That
Oh,
boy,
He's literally in the garbage.
his nose is in and it's one of those garbage cans that it's like on the top and his nose is in there. He is a chunker. He loves food. So something must be in there that is calling to him. So anyway, thank you for the space. Valeria, tell me more about you.
I do many different things, but at the core, I help women fall back in love with their lives at a time when they either life hasn't turned out the way they thought, or they're at a point where they're reevaluating their life, thinking I've taken all the wrong turns, and so they are lacking purpose, meaning, direction, clarity, and trust in themselves in life. And I help them put the story that they have in their head about their lives and themselves back together so that they can see the beautiful thread that's being running all along, that's supporting them, that's loving, and they can move forward with more joy, with more purpose, and more ease, in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Love
sharing
it.
that. And Gina, I don't know if you can share, and if you're open to unmiking, I'd love to hear from you too.
Yes, hi. So yeah, my name is Gina. I am a self-love coach, a women's empowerment coach. So very similar to, I'm sorry, was it Marina, the woman just before me? I'm sorry, I'm in the car with my kids and they're driving,
You're
so I was
fine.
talking
Okay,
over
good.
here. So anyway, very similar. I'm somebody who used to not love myself. I grew up with a lot of emotional abuse and I felt like I was worthless. And I discovered self-love, sort of haphazardly discovered it. And I think it's kind of the answer to everything, that your relationship with yourself is what gives you the beautiful foundation for everything else in your life. So I'm coaching women on that. And my interest in podcasting is being a podcast guest. So just so you have that as a reference.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for that.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, when I'm working with individuals, and I work with individuals either one-to-one or in a group, I host a mastermind called the Confident You Mastermind. And the main reason is because I believe that the more that we find the evidence of success in an area, it builds our confidence. And as we're trying to create an income, but also an impact, it's important to have that level of confidence that we keep leveling up. And it doesn't mean that we're going to walk in and be Wonder Woman altogether, but we're going to work at leveling up on an ongoing basis. The one thing
You
that
know,
happens,
I
yep,
was gonna say it's funny. It sounds like we're all supporting women in ways that are really ultimately about confidence in ourselves, self-love, internal stuff that we know is impacting us as business owners, speakers, podcasters, guests, right? So it sounds like we're all kind of in the same space. So I love that. So I'm so glad you did that, Julie. That was great.
yeah. So again, and this is the key, right? We are more alike than we think. But here's the fine line that I want you to keep in mind as you're planning your 90 days or you're running your business or growing your impact. Comparison is going to be the thief of joy in what we do as well. And it becomes very easy to do that in the online space. We're very alike, and then we're going to come across someone's like, oh, so for instance, Julie, she podcasts, she helps people, and we have the same name, right? And we have a lot of things that are in common, but the comparison, if I were comparing, it would steal away my brain power. It would steal away some of my focus on the things that matter. So for that, every time I meet someone that is doing something similar, aligned in the same lane, or whatever you want to call it, I always see it as a great gift to me, because that collaboration, right? And if I view it as collaboration, takes away from the comparisonitis, because the comparisonitis is the thing that ends up paralyzing us in many ways. And when we don't move, we don't get ahead, right? We're going to stay stuck. Now, for me, the big turning point, I mentioned I'm a tiny habits coach. The big turning point is not that I created a whole bunch of new things, but what I realized is that I needed to be aware of how I was spending my days, right? When I came into the office, what did I get caught up on first? Second, how did I derail myself? And also, I also needed to be aware of what is it that I'm doing? Like, okay, I want to serve women. I want to help them. I want to, yay, impact their lives. But what does that really mean? So all of you gave me a really great picture of what you do. But if you don't have like a master vision, right, that fuels the mission, it's going to be very difficult to break that down into smaller, manageable steps, right? So the first thing that I started to do not only is be aware of what I'm doing, but I started to also put together, right, breaking down all of these things into manageable steps. The first thing that you want to do is you want to break down the main vision. So, for instance, for me, the main vision is that this year we're growing the podcasting services that we have. And my husband is part of the business, but in all of that, there's a lot of other things that I do. I speak, I'm a podcaster, I have clients coming in, but I needed to know that that main goal was my overarching goal, right? So I had that yearly vision. At the end of the year, we're going to have 20 podcasting clients, right? That was it. Now, most people, what tends to happen is when we set a goal, it could be a smart goal. It's manageable. It is smart, right? It's specific. Is time bound. All of the things. But what I want you to think of when we look at a goal is that it's something that is going to require other ingredients for us to actually have the overarching result, right? So think of you're going to bake a cake. You're not just going to think I'm going to bake a cake and, get a pan out and then all of a sudden a cake appears, right? You have to have the right ingredients. You have to make sure that you mix the right ingredients. You cook the things at the time that it needs to be. The same thing with your 90-day plan. And one of the things that I do, and I'm going to share the inner workings of my brain. Actually, I'll share it. So every 90 days, I have a planner, and this is my last 90-day planner. I am currently on this one, and I'll share where you can get the resources as well. But the first thing that I do in my plan, right, is I create my 12-month goals, and I come up with 4, not just one. So I talked about my goal for growing the podcasting business in addition to the coaching, right? The coaching is something that I do, and this is the new side. Once I know that that is the goal, I'm going to break that down into the ingredients. Well, there's 5 things that have to happen in your business for it to grow. You need to have new people find you. You need to have new people connect with you, not just find you. Then you need to have people who you build a stronger relationship with. And then when you have a deep relationship with someone, you can invite them to work with you. And last but not least, you delight the people that work with you, right? Now, in my 12-month goal, not only do I decide what that is, but I decide, okay, if I want to get more people into my podcast, right? Into my podcasting service or in the coaching services. Let's talk more coaching because that's something that's been going on for a while. I wanted to get more people into my coaching services. What do I need to do to attract more people, right? So, one of the things is podcast guesting, right? How many of you know that podcast guesting is a great way to get visibility, right? Okay. So now I think, what is a reasonable amount of podcasts that I can be in a year? So, how many of you know how many podcasts do you want to be a guest in this year? Anyone?
I would say I think I aim at 2 to 3 a month. So,
Yeah. So for me, and here's where, if we don't have a destination, it's going to be very difficult for us to actually take the steps daily, right? And that's where the overwhelm comes in because we don't know what to do for a second or third. So for me, my goal is that I'm going to be in 26 podcasts for 2025. 26, right? And then once I have that overarching goal for the year, I move into breaking it down into the 12 goal, into the 90-day plan. And that 90-day plan shifts because now I don't have to, like, oh my God, 26 podcasts. That's a lot, right? I can say that 26, right, divided by 4, right? And what it really breaks down for me is that I am going to pitch 12 podcasts for those 90 days, right? I'm not pitching the 26, and it may not be that I'm pitching the 12 every week. I am picking 2, right?
mm,
And that's how I begin to um, make my week happen, right? So that I know that in a weekly basis, if my goal is the big thing, and then there's the second thing, then their goal is every Monday at 3 p.m., I set aside time to do that, right? To pitch. So that's really the first thing that helps you to build the momentum is to understand your overarching, breaking it down, and then breaking it down a little more granular. So the first thing, how many of you have read the book, The 12-Week Year? I highly recommend the book. It's one of my favorites. I teach it in my group. And the reason I teach it is because exactly what we're talking about today. We're looking at picking the things that are the most important, right? Picking the things that are going to move the needle. So if you are looking to, again, grow your business, big picture, right? Then that means that you need to more visibility. So, okay, I'm going to get on podcast, right? And then if you're going to get on podcast, you're going to have to pitch yourself, right? Now we're here. In the 12-week year, one of the things that we talk about is what is that action? What is pitching your podcast? Well, let's think about all the things that we need to do. Give me some of the things that you do to pitch yourself to a podcast.
Find the right podcast to be on.
Okay, what else?
Usually you've got to fill out an application or a questionnaire of some kind.
Okay, what else?
I would also have like a template email if they don't have that I would send out. And then after I send it, I would schedule myself an appointment or a reminder that I need to follow up with them in a week.
Yeah.
So that I'm keeping that funnel open.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly it. Valeria, do you have anything else that you do if you want to pitch yourself to a podcast?
No, I'm just starting, so.
Okay. All right. Well, this is perfect for you and for all of us because it's a reminder. So, yeah, there's different steps that go into each of the things that we want to accomplish. But the problem is that many times we don't like sit down and write down what those steps are, right? So the most important thing as we're planning is to really identify like where do I want to be at the end of the 90 days? Maybe I want to have that I've been or that I've pitched, right? Myself to podcast, or I want to in the next 90 days have more visibility because I'm going to, start to release more episodes, right? I'm going to record my own podcast. I'm going to release more episodes. So now if I'm releasing more episodes, right, because that's part of my plan, the overarching, that means that I need to figure out what I'm going to talk about, figure out the script, figure out, the collateral, and then I have to not only find the time to record, but then I have to find the space to do the show notes, the media, maybe if I'm bringing a guest, make meeting with the guest, right? All of these things, right?
I can say Valeska just launched her podcast, so she's feeling that heat of all those things.
Right. So the biggest thing is again, and I see this. I actually have someone that I spoke to yesterday, and she was interviewing me for her podcast, and she just started out, right? And she said to me, "I started the podcast, and I haven't recorded in 3 weeks, and I haven't had an episode, even though I released 4 episodes." And one of the biggest things as I was speaking to her is that she's like, "Well, I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I don't know when to do it." And all of these things are the things that affected her. So what we talked about is how can you, right? What is the time in your week that you're going to be maybe scripting your episodes? What is the time that you record? And all of that begins to be your designated time for certain tasks. Now, I talked about how I audited my time, and part of the job that you should be looking at is looking at your week, right? What are the things that you typically do? So, for instance, for me, in addition to, right, running a business, having a podcast, and the things that come with that, I have an elderly mom that lives with me, right? I have to make sure she's fed. I have to make sure that some of her stuff is taken care of. So for that reason, right, I need to know what do I need to account for in my week and become very intentional and say, hey, my recording time is going to be on this date. My writing my newsletter is going to be in this date. Or researching the podcast that I'm going to pitch myself to is going to be on this day. And really creating that appointment with ourselves, right, helps to create a little bit of more cohesiveness. Now, the next step is you're going to find that even though you know, right, I need to set that appointment and I already know what I do in my day, you may not necessarily get to it. And that's because there's other what I call noise going on around you, right? The stuff that we have to do that moves us forward is a signal. The signal that keeps us kind of like coming back to the goal, right? It's like the beacon that is like, woo, woo, and we have to follow the signal. But in the process, we are allowing all the noise of life get us distracted, right?
Yes.
So,
And the networking and the workshops we want to go to and all the other things
exactly.
that all of our to-dos get pushed to the next day and the next week over and over again.
Now, here's a question for each of you. How many of you, well, what do you think is the biggest signal that we all have in our lives that takes us away from doing the things that we want to do to grow our business, to grow our brand?
Then go ahead, Gina.
My kids.
Okay. Sleep. Okay. Sleep is important. And your kids. Anybody else have another guess?
Being tired and not feeling like you can even think clearly because there's too many things to do.
Yeah. So here's
Your phone.
typically your
Yes.
phone. Yep. And that's exactly it. So this little device is one of the devices that is going to derail you the most, right? So right now, okay, hold on. No lie. I don't know if you can see how many messages I have. 17 text messages.
Oh no.
Okay.
See, my Virgo brain can't handle that.
Right. And guess what? It's very overwhelming to think I have 17 messages, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of my day, right, when I'm done here and I'm getting ready to go, that's when I go through my messages and I check them
Mm.
because those messages are noise, right? It may be that I texted somebody first and they're getting back to me, but they're pulling me away from what I'm supposed to be focusing on right now. The other thing that tends to derail us most times, and I used to do this a lot in my corporate career. When I would arrive on my desk in my office, I would have my cup of coffee and sit down. And the first thing that I opened was email. How many of you open email first thing in the morning?
Yep.
That is one of the noises that is really going to derail you as well. Why? Because email is 99.9 somebody else's priorities to you, right?
Mm.
So for me, and what I recommend to my clients is email is important. We still have to connect with people. Still have to answer them. But the way that I do it is not first thing in the morning. I come up and on a weekly basis, right? I share my planner. The thing that I do is I come up with my top 3 for the week, the non-negotiable. My top 3 are the things that if nothing else happens, right? I needed to get that done because it moved me closer to my goal. So for me this week, one of the biggest top threes that I have, right, is that I needed to film. I need to film my episode of the solo podcast or my solo episode. That's one of my top threes. Why is that one of my top threes? Well, because in my 90-day goals is that I have 12 episodes that I'm releasing. So
Mm.
if that's the case, right, I reversed engineered and decided that, okay, well, I have a lot of other things to do, but if I want to say, check, I'm closer to my goal, I need to do the thing, right? And this is where brainstorming and all of the things that go into achieving something will help us. Now, when do I check email? Typically, what I'll do is I will open email and I will set a little timer and 20 minutes. First thing that I do is I go through, okay, who do I need to respond to first? Because someone like me, when I open email, I'll be like, "Oh, look at that person. She put out a new course. Oh, what's that about?" I'll click on it and then I'll go, "Oh, you know what? I should download the thing." Oh, and I download the thing. And then I think, you know what? I think I need to create something like this for my business. Let me go do that. Right. And then all of a sudden, like it spirals.
Down
And
the
the
rabbit hole.
priorities right, and the priorities that we had are all of a sudden shifted. So, and the reason, right, I set up that 20-minute timer is because I know that I need to get as many emails that I go through in that period of time before it's over. So the other piece of the rule when I'm checking email is if it's going to take me more than 3 minutes to respond to someone, then that goes into a to-do list. Not it's not a top 3, but it's still a to-do, right? And of course, because I've audited my time, I already know that on certain windows in my calendar, I have the to-do list time, right? I've also trained people that I'll return your message, but it might not be today, right, Julie? And it can be frustrating for others, but their priorities, I want to collaborate with them, but it's really about how I'm moving closer to what I want to accomplish, right?
Yeah. I think that's really powerful because even as you were talking about you have a top 3 as your episode, I find I push my own podcast aside for all the other things. Like I got to schedule those emails, I got to do those social posts, I got to respond to people. But the way you're talking about the framing is so great because yes, we need to do those, but what is really our priority for our business? And we miss a
Right.
lot of that.
So, and so you may be wondering, like, okay, how do you know all of that? And how do you know like when to schedule your post? Because to Julie's point, right? I have to have emails that go out to. I have to pitch myself. I have to work with clients. So all of that, right, is part of the puzzle that sometimes because we don't have all the pieces, see how when you create a puzzle, you have to have the outline first and then the inside. An ideal calendar and doing an audit on what you are normally doing is the thing that will create that outside of the puzzle. Then when you're starting to work on the other things, it goes inside, right? So the first thing, typically what I do before I start planning the 90 days is I go back to my yearly plan. Is that still something that I want to accomplish? Is that still something that where I want to be December 31st? And I connect with Julie December 31st and say, how will Julie feel if she hit that or not? Right? If she had money in her bank account, if she served X amount of clients, if she released X amount of whatever the goal may be, right? Then you want to make sure that you understand that picture and then you reverse engineer, right? Now, for most of us, and I see this with clients all the time, you launch a business, you want to do your thing, and you're not sure how many clients you want for the week. And or if you do know how many clients you want for the week, you don't know the activities that need to be done that generate that, right? So for me, right, I have key numbers that are important for my business. The first step is I know that if I want to have 3 new clients per week, I need to have 12 sales calls. And if I need to have 12 sales calls, I need to network with a lot more people, right? Is that fair to say? Now, it could be overwhelming if I have like, oh my God, I need to network, I need to do this, I need to do that, right? But what I've done already is I created a framework on my calendar, right? I don't network with people every day, right? I don't record every day. I don't serve clients every day. but I've created just pockets of time where I know what's predictable so that if life happens, right? Um, I can get back in the wagon. All I need to do is like, okay, wait, it's Wednesday afternoon. What am I supposed to be doing? What is the thing? And it's repeatable, right? Rinse and repeat, because that rinse and repeat is important to keep you in on track, right? Because life happens and maybe your kids are going to need to go to the doctor, or maybe your dog is going to be having some sort of throw up episode, or someone is going to call you and say, hey, do you want to go to coffee, right? And I love that. I definitely want to go to coffee, but it helps me to think like, okay, I can't do it today because it's a client day for me, right? I can do it tomorrow. And it gives me more flexibility to be, believe it or not, more spontaneous. How many of you have a time that is specific for certain tasks in your business?
I've tried, but it
Okay.
always seems to get moved. I need to set it's I think a lot of what you're talking about is ourselves setting boundaries with ourselves. I think especially as women, we have a hard time saying no, even if it doesn't fit our schedule or our goals for the week, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to be like, I'd love to, but I can't that day or this week or whatever it is.
Yeah, and this is exactly where the tiny habits approach comes in, right? And this is the one thing that many of us, excuse me, get a lot of goals in our plate, and we have a lot of dreams, and we have a lot of things, right? But what happens is, like Julie said, there's other priorities. We don't want to say no. How long do you spend? Yeah, I'll give you that. A lot of that are the derailments, are the noise. So, for instance, for me, not only am I planning and I have my calendar laid out, my ideal calendar, I also create a dollar value for each of the activities that I do in a day, right? So what do I mean by that? Being here today is a high value activity for me. Why? I am meeting new people. I am strengthening a relationship with a collaborator, right? And then I'm also putting my content out there, right? So that means that, and then that moves my needle more toward my goal of growing my business rather than, for instance, creating my social media post, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yes.
So for every activity that I do, and this is again the first thing that I encourage clients to do is to go in and to audit their calendar, because if you audit your calendar, then you can start to see, not necessarily that you're going to stop doing the thing or that you're not going to show up in a certain way, but you're going to start to see where you're spending your time and that it's taking away from the priorities that you have for yourself, for your overall business, and for the things that matter, right? So once you have that audit, and then you start to give yourself a dollar value for the activities, then you start to plug it in. So what do you think? How do you think I come up with the dollar value for the activities that I do every day? Just to guess.
I don't know.
Like an hourly rate, so to speak?
There is an hourly rate. Yeah. So there is an hourly rate for the activities that I do. So how do you know what do you think I do to create that?
I know in the past and with my past businesses, I would say I would always ask where people came from. So then I would know this is this client that was a $5,000 client. They followed this trail and I spent this much time making it. And then I would back calculate it.
Yeah. So that's a great way of doing it. Now the one thing that I do is I know, and by the way, the a revenue goal is great, but that's not necessarily, the best goal that we want to track, right? We want to track maybe how many times we're networking. We want to track maybe how many new people sign up for our email list or how many podcasts, because these are the things that are controllable to us. However, I do want to track what the income is because, right? Although that's not my main thing, the activity that I do and that I can track and I have control over immediately has an impact on that, right? So the first thing, and I'm going to share my screen. So the first thing that I do is after I've assessed my calendar, right, is these are some of the activities that we spend time doing, right? And I came up with all the different activities. So if I'm checking my inbox for it's a $10 an hour activity. If I'm scrolling social media, it's a $10 an hour activity. If I'm sending invoices, it's a $10 an hour activity. Scheduling, if I'm like going back and forth with someone to schedule, right? Or I'm researching, or I'm writing a newsletter, or I'm formatting my blog, or I'm posting. Now, no, this is not an exercise to like, oh, look how bad or how good you are, right? But how many of us, because by the way, even though I have a framework and I follow it, I have times that I'm scattered, right? So how many of you would say spend the majority of your time doing this first column, column A, right? Okay. So now let's go to my calendar. And here are, so $100 activities for me are Facebook and Google ads, which I don't do. I don't do ads, but I use this for my clients. Project management. What do I need by project management? Well, I have an assistant that I delegate to, right? She can be the person who is sending an invoice. She could be the person who's scheduling. And at times when I first started, and this happens, I get this question all the time. Hey, Julie, I don't have the money for an assistant. Hey, Julie, I cannot get an assistant yet. When I first started, I had an assistant for the first 6 months, and her name was Julie. But if we had an email address, hello at Go Confidently Coaching, and there was time on my calendar that's like, oh, I need my assistant. My assistant is going to go work on those things. And the stuff went from that. And then I also created like, okay, how do I invoice? And I would record myself. And then this way, right, I knew that I only had to get those assistant tasks done in that period of time. Not all the time, but just in that period of time. So when I got those done, it opened up time for me to do some of the other activities that move my needle better. How am I doing? Is everybody sort of here, not here? Okay. So here's where we also go wrong. We're good at planning. How many of you think you're good at planning? I think we're all pretty good, right? We have calendars, we have schedules, we do a lot of things. We've moved our business forward. The thing that typically derails us is not that we don't know how to plan. It's not that we don't know how to delegate. It's not that we don't know when to do it. It's not that we don't have a list of the things that we need to do. Right? The things that really derail us is that we never go back and assess what we did. Right? So I
And I can
shared.
even see that, like you're talking about the 12-month goals, and then each 90 days. Like, so each 90 days we should be looking back and say, do I need to change those 12 goals based on what I've done and learned in this 90 days? And I think a
Right.
lot of us don't give ourselves that space to do it. And we set these big goals and we're just moving along, but we're not really assessing how and if we're moving towards them at all.
100%. So here's typically, so the two things that happen, and I shared, right? And I'm happy to share the planner with each of you, and we can talk a little, and I can show you and work on showing you more in depth, right? But once I know what my priorities are, I come up with my top three. I also track the activity. So you can see here for every day of the week, I have it in my Google Calendar, but I go back and I write and I say, huh, I had a CEO date today, right? That's $100. Oh, I had a sales call. That's a $500 activity. And at the end of the day, I total that out. And if I want to have my income for the month be $5,000, that means that the equivalent of the activity that I do has to be higher level tasks rather than the $10 an hour tasks, right?
Right. You'd
And
have to
this
spend
way,
100 hours on those 10-hour tasks to get to, yeah.
right.
I
So
think
sorry, I'm moving the dog.
I think sometimes we have a hard time of putting a value on the activities we do, but the way you really framed it makes a lot of sense because we can literally analyze day by day the value of the time we're spending and be like, "Oh wow, I shouldn't be spending 5 hours doing that. I need to shift."
Right. Exactly. And so now, once and I'll show you a plain one. So the first thing that I do on a Monday is I review my metrics. What are metrics? I review what are my goals for the year, for the 90 days, right? For the 30 days and for the week, because I break down the activity, right? If I want to have 26 podcast guesting, how many people do I need to pitch, right? In a month. And then from that, how many do I need to pitch per week, right? So then that goes into my calendar and I go back and I say, okay, I'll review the metrics from last week. Did I pitch the 4 people that I wanted to? Did I send the 4 emails that I wanted to? Or did I research and made a list of the podcasts that I want to be in, right? First step. Second step, I look at um, the activities that I did throughout the week and what did that amount to, right? What was the goal that I wanted to have my activities be the equivalent for? And what did I actually make for the week, right? Because what is in your calendar is a direct result of what's going to be in your bank account.
Mm-hmm.
100%. And I
Yeah.
see this with my clients. If my client is doing a lot of different things, but they're not networking, they're not putting themselves out there, they're not, whatever it is, right? They're not doing the high level activities. I can guarantee you that they're not going to be bringing in the revenue that they desire. Now, the last thing at the end of the week, I go in and I look at who did I support this week? Who did I connect with this week? What am I excited about for next week? Who do I want to connect with next week that I didn't do? And then I also review what's working, what's not working, who do I need help from, right? And answering these questions at the end of the week frames the planning for the next day, for the next week, right? I also come up with my wins for the week. What are 5 things that I won? And that could be as easily as I went to bed early, right? That's a win. Or it could be like, you know what? I drank my water every day. Because within having your goal and your top 3 and having your business goals, the thing that I want to encourage you is also add time for your self-care. And every week, in addition to my top 3, I also come up with the top 3 things, right? That I'm going to do for self-care and I track whether I did them or not, right? And I can tell you in the week of 4/14, right? So I did my top 3, not this one, and I also only did this when it came to self-care. So not perfect, but the system is there. So what does that do? Gives me the construct to know what I need to work on for the following week and
Well,
how
and
I need to focus on that.
I also love the review because I know one thing I do is I write these lists and it becomes a whole pile by the end of the week. And so I see, like, if I have a time blocked on Friday to review that week, then those notes should be going in there. I connected with so and so. Then on Friday, I can say, did I email them like I said? What was I supposed to send them? Because those are a lot of the little things I feel like I lose track of or miss. And we have to set ourselves up for success. Like, we're doing it to ourselves. And I just want to say, I know
100%.
we're almost over time. We
Yep.
will stay and answer questions, but if you have to go, don't worry. Anything else we cover in the recording, it'll be there and you'll get that via email.
Yeah. And so just to kind of bring it home, I want to show you a little bit of because and this is typically what I say to my clients. I'm going to show you what I use and I'm going to show you how I use it. And then I'm going to tell you there's other things that you can use and this is how you use them. And then you decide what works for you and how to implement what you learn because my brain doesn't work the same way that my husband's brain works, right? And we may have similar tools, but he's not going to use them the same way. So the
Right.
best tool that you can use is the tool that works for you, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're chasing for the next best thing, but if we already have a good thing, stick to it. And guess what
Right.
happens when you stick to it? You become better at it. And when you become better at it, you become more confident. Now, with the and I can share the spreadsheet because this might be helpful. So again, I have all the activities here, right? And then I come up with my weekly checklist. And as I'm going through, each week, and this is, this is my sample one, but each week I go in and I can check off what I did or didn't do. And this helps me to figure out where I am for the next step and where I need to go. Because for each of us to plan a big week, right, means that we have to kind of prioritize and not know if we don't know what our priorities are, then that also is going to affect how we get derailed during the week. So to close, figure out your big goal, break it down, and then reverse engineer, right? The next thing too that you should know is that the the if you plan in a 90-day system or a 12-week plan, and let's say you get messed up or derailed, or maybe your goals and priorities are shifting, then start again and create a new 12 weeks. You don't have to wait till the quarter starts or next. And of course, the other thing is if you know what your goals are for the year, for the for the 90 days, for the 30, the 60, the weekly, the daily, then when opportunities pop up, then it's easier to say, huh, is that a hell yes or a hell no? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it will help you to not be the bad guy and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go do that because fill in the blank, right?
Right.
And that's how when so for instance, someone wanted me to apply to another TEDx, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? I want to do another one. And then I went back and I'm like, no, no, not on my plan. That's not in my plan for this year. Maybe next, right? Or, someone said, hey, do you want to, we have a TV studio. Maybe you can come in. Oh my God, how fun. I can repurpose my podcast there and I can get more visibility. And nope, not in my plan. Because all those derailments are the ones that make us start all over again. All those derailments are the ones that keep us away from becoming better at what we're doing. So I'm gonna, and I know that I typically teach this to my clients in an ongoing basis. So I covered everything that I cover usually, in a sprint with them. So the one thing that I want to offer is because I did share a lot of information on Mondays, typically at 11 a.m., I do a co-working. And during that co-working, because guess what? It's my accountability so that's when I do my planning. That's when I go in and I do my planning because I've designated that 1 hour. And sometimes when I said, oh yeah, I need to plan my week, I need to do that, and I didn't have the accountability, then other things came up and I didn't do it. And I said, oh, I need to do it. I need to do it. And then at the end of Friday, I'll get in and I'm like, oh, I didn't do it. And that really hurts us and how we feel about what we're doing, right? And it takes
Right.
away some of our motivation. I also, what I have, and I'll give that to Julie. I have a checklist that you can use, the checklist that you saw, but I also have a 12-week planner that I have a video that explains how to use the planner as well. Okay. And then you can go in there and plug in your goals. And what's really nice, especially for the for the thing, is that as you put in your things, like I did this, I did that, you start to see the charts kind of change, and it shows you visually where you are toward
Mhm.
your goals. And that's, again, giving you resources. You're welcome to use the ones that work for you. And if you want to join me, you're welcome to. Or if you want to chat about it, I'm always happy to talk about it, because I know that this is not something that coming to a 1 hour, all of a sudden you're like an expert at it, right? It takes practice, it takes questions, it takes failure for us to then create the rhythm that moves us forward. But when we have a plan, we're going to feel more confident, and we know how to come back when we get the derailment. So thank you
Yeah.
for hosting me, Julie.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I took so many notes. So that's what I always love bringing speakers in, because I learn too. I dropped Julie's website in the chat just in case you aren't connected with her yet. You can find all of her info there. And I think what I loved about how you said it, and I'm even thinking about with my own clients and with my membership, is, if you're setting goals and then you're checking in. So let's say we have 26 podcast guesting I want this year, but we realize we did 4 and we didn't get any, or we did 4 and we got 3. Like, that shifts our goals, and a lot of us aren't circling back to see how, okay, great, that means the next week I don't need to spend time on it. I can do more on the speaking that I haven't been doing, or whatever it may be. And so I love the system, but it is still up to us to set it up and then to go back and check in and adjust. And I think it was really important that you said you don't have to wait till the end of the 90 days to change. If you're
That's
seeing
right.
in 2 weeks, there's a big difference, and shift and recreate the plan so you're really focused in the right areas.
Yeah. And Julie, if we have a couple minutes, I just want to I did pull it up so that you can see what the planner looks like, the 12-week plan. And
Yeah,
these
that
are
would be great.
the days. So here is, the setup, right? It walks you through all the directions right here. But first, right, my vision. This is my vision for my life, right? I want to be fit. I want to, have a great relationship with my husband. I want to speak more. I want to have my podcast continue to thrive, right? And then I break it down for all the key areas of life. What is my vision for each of these key areas? And I write down, what is it? What is it? What does it look like? I want to feel connected and at peace with my important relationships. Money, what kind of money do I want to have? And I put images in here because our brain works better with images. Now, once you have your vision, you can come up with your individual goals, right? So if my vision is to be healthy, right? What does it take to be healthy? These are your tactics. I need to meditate. I need to go to sleep. I need to plan my healthy meals. And how often do I need to plan my healthy meals? Well, weekly. In week 1, week 12. So this means that every week I need to do this, right? The same thing with, I have a CEO retreat and I want to increase the number of clients. Well, I need to network weekly, 3 times a week, and I got to do it every week, right? So I start to create this action plan here, right? And then here's my little dashboard, right? And my numbers, because I didn't put some stuff in there, is not showing up. But you can start to see, this will start to populate, and this will, fill in as you are tracking. So I can come in here
Mm-hmm.
and I can track my progress, right? Number 1 goal, network weekly. Okay, I didn't do that, but plan healthy meals. These are the reoccurring tasks, whatever it might be. Weekly, on an ongoing basis, you can see where you are. And at the end of the week, at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll have an idea of how you ended. So that as you start to plan the next 90 days or the next 12 weeks, you're seeing where you need to do the improvements. So that's
Right.
the other piece that definitely can be very beneficial. And I'll send Julie that planner, and I'll also send the video that goes along with it. Okay.
That would be great. Yeah, I'm a visual person, so I love seeing the images and the graphs and all of that. And it may be some people like spreadsheets or checklists or whatever, but it still is about mapping it and not just leaving it. I think a lot of us have a big idea and then we kind of get derailed, but we never come back and say, "Well, where did I leave off? What do I need to do next?" Right? And there's always a new shiny object that and a lot of people come meet with me and like, well, I need a podcast. Okay. Why? Because everyone has one. Shouldn't I have one? It's like, well, that's not the reason to do it. And it's the same with speaking and podcast guesting. It's like you want to be strategic and you also can't do all 10 things at the same time. That's definitely something I've learned. I've had to say no to things. It's like I just don't have the mental space or the time when I have my priorities. But then I also let other things distract me from our priorities. And I think, especially as all of us are coaches, sometimes we're using our time more for our clients than for ourselves. And that's a balance too that having this kind of system in place will really help with.
And don't let comparison or your self-talk really talk you out of having some framework. And it doesn't have to be that it's a very strict framework. It's got to be your framework. But
Right.
I remember when someone said to me, you should only be recording on 1 or 2 days. You shouldn't be recording every day. I thought, why? I really want to record. I don't care. I my schedule. And then when I actually said I only record on this and this date, guess what? People still either
Right.
invite me or book with me to record.
Right.
And I know exactly this is what happens on Tuesdays. This is a Thursday, whatever it is, right? It's there.
Yeah. I think there is that fear of, well, it's not a day I do that and I hate to say no, but if you keep saying yes to things, you're constantly derailing your plans. And I see so many women in business, including myself, do that where we feel like, well, we can't say no. Well, maybe it is okay. If it doesn't meet your goals or your time and your space, it's okay. And a lot of us need that permission from ourselves.
That's right. And it's remind yourself it is somebody else's priority as opposed to yours, right?
Right.
If you want to accomplish this and you're trying to please everybody, then you're not the priority. What
Right.
you want to accomplish is not the priority.
Absolutely. Well,
So
thank you so much, Julie. I don't know if Gina or Valeria have anything else to add or ask. Please feel free to do so. This was great. I think this is such a great framework that anybody who is a speaker, a guest, or a podcaster wants to become one of those. I know that you do this with your clients. You can't start a podcast till you have it set up strategy wise and goal wise. And it's the same thing for speaking and podcast guesting. And even those two are slightly different in terms of goals and settings. So it's really important to set yourself up for success. Because I see a lot of people just say, sure, I'll be a guest. Who wants me? It's like, well, that's not going to get you anywhere.
and being in community and the community that Julie offers is incredible because you're not doing it alone and you can say, hey, I need some help, or how do you do that? And that's
Right.
the most important thing that will help keep you growing and moving toward where you want to go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Julie, so much. Thank you, both of you, for coming and spending this time with us. I'm going to